Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to dig into the old, rigid rules of what it means to be a man and start exploring a new blueprint, one that's healthier, more authentic, and ultimately a lot more human for everyone.
Okay, let's dive right in with this really powerful idea from the writer Bell Hooks. In a world that's constantly telling men to just tough it out, to disconnect, this idea that simply feeling something is an act of revolution, that's huge. That's really the starting point, right? Reclaiming what's been pushed down.
Think about it. For generations, boys have been handed this unwritten set of rules, right? It's like an invisible contract that lays out all the terms of what it means to be a man. And yeah, it's not written down anywhere, but you better believe it's enforced everywhere.
And this contract, you learn it through silence, through social pressure. And what does it demand? That you basically sever all connection to your own feelings. And what's so interesting is that, as psychologist Terence Real points out, this whole process doesn't actually lead to strength. Not at all. It leads to isolation, to despair.
And the cost of this emotional shutdown, it's huge. It's not about being stoic, It's more like a numbness, an emotional anesthesia. And it creates these invisible walls that just spill out into everything. Our friendships, our romantic relationships, our communities. It makes having a real, genuine connection, well, it makes it incredibly difficult.
Okay, so this slide really gets to a fascinating conflict, right? It's at the very heart of modern manhood. Sociologist Michael Kimmel saw this tension everywhere. He'd ask guys, what makes a good man? And they'd list things like honor, integrity, compassion. But then when he asked, okay, what makes a real man? The answers totally changed. It became all about this performance, this cultural script. Never cry, always win, don't show weakness. And the thing is, these two roles, they're often in direct opposition to each other. Now, for queer and trans men, the weight of this contract is even heavier. It's compounded. The shame gets layered on. First, you're shamed for not fitting into that rigid mold of masculinity. And then, you're shamed for the very desires that make you who you are. It's a system that basically demands you erase parts of yourself just to survive. So here's the thing. This impossible contract, it's failing. It's breaking down. It's not building stronger men at all. In fact, it's fueling this quiet epidemic of loneliness, of isolation, and despair.
And if you look at the data, it tells a really stark story. That number you see, 15%, that's the percentage of men in America who say they have no close friends at all. And get this, that's a 5-fold increase since 1990. People call it a friendship recession, but it's not just a statistic. It represents a massive, profound loss of connection and support.
And this loneliness, it often just festers under the surface, completely invisible. Because men are taught that pain is something you just power through, right? So depression doesn't always show up as sadness. Instead, it might look like irritability, or turning to substances, or just rage. It's a way of hiding the wounds, sometimes even from yourself.
And this gets to a really crucial point. In this system, masculinity isn't something you are, it's something you do. It's a constant, never-ending performance. Think of it like a currency that you can lose at any second. If you lose your job, if you show the wrong emotion, if you fail some kind of test, poof, it's gone. And that just puts men under this constant, exhausting pressure to prove themselves over and over and over again.
Okay, so what's the way out? What if the tools we need to rebuild are found not in making our armor stronger, but in actually having the courage to take it off?
This is where researcher Brené Brown's work just completely flips the script on what we think strength is. She discovered that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's not a liability. It's our greatest measure of courage. It's the birthplace of connection, of creativity, of authenticity. It's basically where all the real stuff of living actually happens.
So, what are we actually talking about when we say vulnerability? Well, it's that feeling you get in your stomach right before you say I love you for the first time. It's the emotional risk, the exposure, the uncertainty. It's about showing up and letting yourself be seen when you have absolutely no control over what happens next. It's not about winning or losing. It's just about having the guts to show up in the first place.
In his book, The Velvet Rage, Alan Downs actually maps out what this psychological journey can look like. Now, his work focuses specifically on the experience of gay men, but honestly, the path he describes is pretty universal. It's this journey from, first, becoming aware of all that internalized shame, then moving through a phase of overcompensating and performing, and then, finally, you get to release all that baggage, all that stuff that was never yours to carry, and you can start cultivating a real authenticity.
And this all points to a call for a new kind of masculinity. It's one that values being over doing.
The writer Bell Hooks called it feminist masculinity, and it proposes this really radical idea that a man's value is inherent. It's just there. It's not based on what he does, how much he earns, or his ability to dominate anyone. It's based simply on his being, his existence as a human.
Okay, so what is this new blueprint? What does it actually look like in the real world? What are the qualities of a reclaimed, healthier masculinity?
Well, the first step, and this is absolutely crucial, is to completely reject the myth that there's only one way to be a man. That whole idea of a single monolithic masculinity, we gotta throw it out. Because as sociologist R.W. Connell points out, masculinity is, and it has always been, plural. There are many masculinities. There are countless ways to be a man, and that diversity, that's a source of strength, not weakness.
So, a healthy masculinity isn't some checklist you have to tick off. It's more like a living ethos, a way of being, and it's defined by qualities that build connection, not ones that require you to suppress parts of yourself. We're talking about things like emotional intelligence, the courage to be authentic, having a real sense of integrity and purpose, and a vision of power that's about creating and sharing. It's about having power with others, not power over them.
And this is exactly why queer and trans voices are so essential here. They are such important guides in this whole conversation. You can think of them as the canaries in the coal mine, you know? They're the ones who have been asking the tough questions that expose the flaws in the entire system. Because they've been forced to reckon with the parts of themselves they were told to destroy. They end up lighting a path toward healing for literally everyone.
So let's be super clear. This is not about destroying masculinity. Not at all. It's about transforming it, about reclaiming it, and turning it into something more beautiful, more just, and a whole lot more free. It's about building a masculinity that's spacious enough to hold all of who we are, the fierce parts and the soft parts, the bold and the broken, you know, to be whole and still be a work in progress.
So, at the end of the day, this whole explainer, it's really an invitation. It's not here to give you all the answers. It's about creating the space for you to start asking the question for yourself on your own terms. So the question for you is, what would your masculinity look like if it were truly, authentically your own?